Wodjek de Bruin's story started in those halcyon interwar years when he was manufactured by the Edward Bear Company of Lower Bearspuddle, Nottinghamshire. He was an unremarkable bear at that time, one of many produced by that company, mostly for the American markets. He was given as a present to the then 10-year-old Lady Penelope Harrington Hawfield Simcox-Smythe. Upon war's declaration, Lady Penelope gave the bear as a good luck charm to her brother Barrington Hawfield Simcox-Smythe. Simcox-Smythe carried the bear on every sortie and named the bear after a brave polished flyer Wodjek or Windsey Esquivich, who was killed in action. Thus the bear took the name Wodjek de Bruin. The bear's luck ran out when the plebby he was traveling in was shot down over Himmelbert in September 1943. He was taken into custody in Luftstalag No. 4. What happened after the liberation of Stalag Luft 4 is a bit of a blur. It seems that as a newly animated bear, Wodjek was not recognized as either living nor as a prisoner of war. How he survived the years between 1945 and 1948 is mainly conjecture. There were rumors that he spent this time as a cuddle bunny of wealthy German women, but this is unlikely as there were very few wealthy Germans at that time. It is more likely he was involved in the black market. Unsubstantiated stories suggest that he was responsible for the distribution of very rare and expensive Soviet porn. All that is known is that in 1948 he was recognized as a British serviceman due to the Made in England tag on his bottom and recollections of his fellow inmates at Stalag Luft 4. Wodjek was promoted to group captain just in time to join in the Berlin airlift of 1948, where he flew short Sunderlands out of Gatow, a rather remarkable achievement given that no one noticed that he had never been taught to fly.
Capitalizing on contacts he made during the Berlin airlift, Wodjek started De Bruin Enterprises USA Propriety Limited in 1950. He moved to the States and made his base of operations Hollywood, where he took up an acting and musical career. He found it hard to get good parts but found it easy to find starlets. He commenced entertainment and logistical departments of DV, and after 1960 brought the precocious and very young and Rainback Conmula on board as chief of operations and manager in 1961. De Bruin also established the aerospace division and was on board to profit from America's space adventures. The list of high-profile celebs linked to Wodjek is endless. Throughout the 50s and 60s he continued to play in jazz combos and rock bands and fly as a test pilot. Wodjek was the first man to coin the phrase "I have a need for speed." Sometime in the early 1960s Wodjek split for Europe as he had a chance to direct in France. One of the earliest adopters of the Peter Stuyvesant jet set, Wodjek traveled around the world dealing with his business interests and his careers in music and film. It was almost like he never had to sleep. It appears the Cuban Missile Crisis weighed heavily on De Bruin, because in early 1964 he started looking for land to base his now international business. He acquired a lot of land in Patagonia and in 1965 started an international airport and a major residential industrial corporate complex. Rumors about what the bear was up to down there started almost as soon as the first sod was turned.
Always possessing a social conscience, the bear followed a number of the human rights issues of T-Day and was heavily involved in the anti-segregation movement as he had experienced anti-bearism firsthand. In addition, he was invited by his uncle Rook to be a part of the super-secret Club of Rome, which he thought was a Romano nightclub. He was briefly a beatnik and then a rocker, but throughout this time Wodjek de Bruin had become a very wealthy bear indeed. His friend Shaz Beaker recalls Wodjek in the 1950s and 60s.
"Man, you got him itchy. I must be allergic, baby. Yeah, I know that cat De Bruin. I met him with Bergen and Levingle. Some night club for 3 M's, I think. We was playing Bebop Bird. Me some other cats. But the bear was tres cool. Ziegler and Ziegler shoots and whistling Moose the Mooch in the car park you dig. From 52 to 55 we made the scene, then the bird flew on the scene, got too hot. I next saw him 62, in Paris with Belmondo and Escher sizzle squizzle he sides up, and whispers Pierre that Mitchell, scram then to me baby, let's get lost. High times man sweet.
Wodjek's friend Alain Desher recalls Wodj in France in 1962. A rare interview from French TV. Monday nom est Alain Desher. J'ai travaillé avec Wodjek sur son grand film, l'an dernier. Monday Avis, il est un des plus grands réalisateurs au monde aujourd'hui. Marquez n'est pas songer, will sait le sera avec les plus grands. Hitchcock, Claude Charles, Renoir, Delaney, Vadim. Nous parlons seulement de Bruin. Si il mis sa TTL scars el pour gouverner le monde.
I met Wodjek in Berlin in '47 when I was serving as chaplain to the United States Army Air Force at Tempelhof. Wodjek was rather impetuous in those days and rather a force of nature. We spent many hours discussing the existence of God and the soul. Topics that were important to him. This was the beginning of a lifelong friendship. Indeed, when my service to the Holy Church ended, Wodjek gave me the opportunity to provide spiritual comfort to his workforce at De Bruin, Patagonia as emeritus priest, a position I still occupy. I first met Wodjek many years ago at the Club of Rome. I am sorry I mean a club in Rome. Something about him illuminated me to his daring and intelligence. Though politically we have not always seen eye to eye, we have always concurred about the position of business in the postmodern economy. Like me, Wodjek is passionate about freedom, and like me, not necessarily about its provision. Wodjek has on occasions worked as a color journalist for me, and his assistance as a QC was invaluable to me during 1975's dismissal. A funny story. Did you know that the image of the Value Bear in the Jungle Book movie was based on Wodjek? Bet you didn't know that, huh? Well, in closing, they say you can tell the character of a man by the company he keeps, and I am proud to call Wodjek a friend. Here's another thing that shows Wodjek to be the funny bastard that he is. You'll laugh at this. Ha ha ha. It whisks me up. Once when I took over a paper and I was happily sacking all the staff, the bear goes all combo on me and begged that I don't sack him. Well, he's a friend and I am, what's that word, compassionate, so I cut their wages instead. What a couple of softies we are.
The late 60s saw Wodjek embrace hippie culture in a big way. It is little known, but he almost gave away his entire fortune as he didn't wish to be seen as a redhead. For a number of years, De Bruin Enterprises was maintained by the inscrutable Henri Macconula. Indeed, it was spoken about at the time that he was almost Swingalian in his hold over the bear. As a hippie, Wodjek tried to find himself, but as he had not lost himself to start with, this proved difficult. He lived in the Haight, up the country, on a commune, and in the early 1970s he moved to live in New York City. During this time, Wodjek refused any money from De Bruin Enterprises and called it tainted bread. He moved to New York City to re-establish himself in the legitimate theater. With the tumult of the times, this proved easier said than done, and he fell into the poverty trap. To escape this, Wodjek turned to the skills that had served him so well in the times just after the war. Wodjek became a small-time bunco man in Times Square and 42nd Street, selling Soviet porn and untaxed cigarettes. The times he played with Jimmy and ran with Joni seemed far in the past. Then he started to get small parts on Broadway. Eventually his singing and dancing skills ensured he won a Tony Award for his acting in a chorus line. For the second time, Wodjek had risen to the top and started to make friends with actors and politicians again. All the while, De Bruin Enterprises, under the stewardship of the insufferable infant terrible Henri, made more and more money and was by 1974 the largest private company in the world. Wodjek's social conscience remained undimmed and he still protested injustice whenever he saw it. He protested against apartheid and later, after moving to the United Kingdom to play rugby for Wales beside the great Williams JJ and JPR, he protested for miners' wages in the Rhondda Valleys. At this time he formed a relationship with Felicity Kendall, who was then at the height of her fame, appearing in The Good Life.
Wodjek's nadir came in 1977, the year punk broke. Felicity had left him. He returned to New York a broken bear. Pretty soon he was living on the street. Timely intervention by Henry Mack ensured he was placed in Cincinnati, where he learned cognitive behavior therapy. He came out of Cincinnati a changed man. He re-embraced de Bruin Enterprises and reintegrated himself back into society, meeting stars and icons like Andy Warhol. In fact, Warhol did the infamous bear painting at this time. It is worth millions, but Wodjek donated it to the Booner Captoblastes Hall in honor of the eradication of the Captoblastes beetle. He hates those little buggers. He started acting and playing music again and rediscovered his love of protest and the interest of those less fortunate. He balanced his leftist principles with right-wing friends. Uncle Rupee gave him a job as a columnist in one of his New York papers, and Wodjek started up Wodjek Publications, through which he hawked increasing dodgy products. Products seen in the back of comic books like Wodjek's Personal Get Fit Plan, Learn You Speak Now, and Wodjek's Piano Method. The bear was a pioneer in the nascent mobile phone market, launching Go Bear model mobile service. In hindsight, this may have been premature, because in 1983 there were only 2 users on this network, Wodjek and Enrati, and it took till 1995 before it got into the black. Wodjek started in the poor remake of The Breakfast Club called The Brunch Society, which failed dismally at the box office, but his next venture, Friends, became highly successful, and though Wodjek left after the pilot, he retained points in the production that ensured he became the world's richest bear. He ran for president in '78 and only failed because he got the dates wrong and should have run in '80. Perhaps the most enduring image of Wodjek at this time was his work with Kate Windows in Britannic. This was later almost entirely remade a la homage by James Cameron as Titanic. Since 1996, Wodjek has given up his film career and returned to playing jazz live. He continues to manage de Bruin Enterprises with his loyal chief of staff and sometimes manager Enrati Makondula. De Bruin Enterprises continues to grow and thrive and expand into new technologies. The armaments side of the business performs exceptionally well, while the entertainment side has recovered from its economic stutters of 2007. Cleverly, de Bruin bought out all the world remaining vinyl record plants and was prescient in foreseeing the world's re-embrace of vinyl as a medium. The Patagonian project remains as controversial as ever, dividing the world opinion as to what he is up to. In the main, Wodjek has spent the last 20 years consulting behind the scenes with many world leaders, using his power and influence to address policy issues. He has continued to follow his sporting interests, being simultaneously both the youngest and the oldest bear to umpire at the cricket and play for Canada at hockey. He also has taken up bodybuilding after being encouraged to do so by his great friend Arnie Swartz, who told him that he was really packing on the pork. He has also started Wodjek's, a discount food store for the less fortunate, and yet the rumors continue that he is looking for world domination. Perhaps his long-term friend Elaine Disher said it best in a recent interview.
Well, you were about 50 years ago only first with a beer. You were only watched to know appear to have a habit. Is the same bureau Firini and Drivinibeli. Am Greyens to pay. You've lost almost all Mrs. for if you continue. Is the will rule the world if you want to. Is the Vema. Viva la Wodj. Viva la France.
Then there are the famous spiritual advisors Faustina, Antagonaea and Amazonia. Faustina in particular is never lost for words. Lastly, we have Wodjek's buddy Huge Grunt, who in a recent interview for The Horse and Hound outlined his friendship with the bear.
My name is Faustina. I am one of Wodjek's spiritual advisors. There is me. I'm the pretty one. Then there is Antagonia. She is pretty antagonistic. By name, by nature. I'm not sure how she came to be with us. Wodjek says the soul goes both ways. He is pretty deep, that bear. Cruel people say I have a deal with him. This is not true at all. Our interests have merely merged, that is all. The other advisor is Amazonia. She is a big and powerful girl, that one. She could move mountains and she would kill for Wodjek. In fact, we all would. That is the power of Wodjek. a simply spiritual bear who sometimes does wrong, but to his credit he almost always immediately regrets it.
I started my career in the late 1980s and everyone spoke of the legendary bear. I didn't meet him till after the Divine Thing. That must have been 97. He kind of read me the riot act. Told me to pull my socks up and behave. Only he said it like behave. We laughed. After that we were friends. He said I could use Patagonia whenever I wanted. What can I say? He is just such an English bear and he knows everyone. When I was going through a bad patch he made me director of entertainment at the Patagonia compound. And he somehow got his mate Warnie to date my ex. That got her off my back. What a bear.
Y'all think the bear is just the sheep, don't ya? Well, let me tell you something. He ain't the cuddly furry guy you all think he is. How's y'all think he made his money anyways? He boasted that he started selling himself to rich widow women in Berlin after the war. He made some contacts and was shipping Soviet porn back to the West at the time of the airlift. Who in the freaking hell do you think owns all them club sodas you see on every street corner now? Him and that sleaze Henry. They started them and made millions. Girls, dope, cash, securities. Well, I bet the only thing that Wodjek de Bruin was the marathon. He's as sleazy as all get-go except none of you lazy mofos can see it. I bet I am the only one who will tell you this. He owns just about everyone else.
The Patagonian compound of Wodjek de Bruin is encased in razor wire and has minefields and machine gun towers. It looks far more like a maximum security prison or military base than it does a corporate headquarters. It is a secretive and foreboding place, with a private security force and allegedly underground bunkers with space for 100,000 people. Those that come and go never speak about what is inside, and those outside the tight circle of de Bruin do not get an entry. Since the first activities of SITE in 1964, rumor and innuendo have swirled about the purpose of such a complex. When asked, de Bruin merely shrugs and says it was a response to global issues and actions and was a reward to his staff for all their work. The slippery and elusive and Rainmac Conmula is even less forthcoming about the site. So what do we know about Patagonia HQ of de Bruin Enterprises? It has a private army of at least 40,000, equipped with the latest high-tech gear, much of it invented by the de Bruin Armory Company of Saskatoon, Canada. It is alleged to have several ICBM silos and dozens of surface-to-air missiles. It has an underground tunnel to both the Pacific and Atlantic coasts, a distance of some 400 miles. These are connected to the complex by high-speed train. The Pacific coast contains the headquarters of de Bruin Marine, the world's largest supplier of medium-sized stealth destroyers. The Atlantic coast is the home of de Bruin's submarine fleet. The site is nuclear-powered. The site is mostly, if not all, underground. The site is wholly self-contained. The site is off-limits to any military power. An investigation in the 1990s cleared the site of any malevolent activities. The site continues to grow. Journalists investigating the site regularly disappear, only to turn up months later in the Down Under bar in Vienna tan fit, laughing and singing praises of the bear as a great bear. This is Ted Merrow for ABC Reporting. I won't be squashed.
Perhaps the last words should go to the Bears' longtime manager and confidant and Rainmac Conmula, and Wodjek himself speaking through his jazz music with 2015's My Brother Marco.
Yeah, I know the bear. He's a friend. I'm his manager. That's my curse. It's a torture and a torment to know him. He makes some money here and there. He compartmentalizes everything. You really don't know what he's up to. There's Patagonia, there's movies, there's music. He flits between things like a bee between flowers. Yep, I know the bear. He's helped me make some money on the way, but in the end, he's a bear. And what can you expect? He remains a bear.